Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's lecture for CCP, one of your last lectures before the final exam. Very exciting. I am joined here today with my lovely colleague from our buying department, Lauren Cunningham Hausman. I'm very excited for her to be here today and to help us all learn a little bit more about the joys of retail math. So with that said, I am going to hand things over to Lauren, and she will dive in.
Terrific. Thanks, Lauren. Hi to everybody out there. Congrats on being part of the CCP group this year. That's quite an accomplishment. I took the CCP last year with Lauren and a bunch of other of our Murray's colleagues, and I have to say it was a really great learning experience for me. It really elevated my cheese knowledge, especially Lauren and the team do such a great job of preparing us with the study sessions and the practice exams. So I think we all felt really confident going into the exam and learned a lot along the way. And then the ACS conference itself is such a great opportunity to network and meet each other, all of us from Murray's, the other folks taking the CCP, and then it was great to chat with producers and cheesemakers and be part of that community. So best of luck to all of you. You're going to have a great experience. So just a little bit about me before we jump into the math, the fun stuff. I joined Murray's about 2.5 years ago as a cave intern, which was a great experience to be around the cheese from its infancy and see how we run things here at our caves out in Long Island City in New York. After I was finished the internship, I was a monger for about a year at our Bleecker Street store. And then I joined the buying team about 1.5 years ago. And right now I'm doing some buying for New York and also working on our private label program within Kroger. And a little bit about the buying team here in New York. We buy for our New York stores, we buy for the e-commerce, the website, and for our wholesale division. And our responsibility really is to identify and source new products, follow new trends, see what's out there. And the things that we're going to cover today, margin and markup, are super important for maintaining profitability as a company. So when we bring in new items, we need to understand what those items cost. We have to understand what the margins are going to be. We have different margins set for if the item is sold in the store at retail, if it's sold on the website, if it's sold through wholesale, and all of that affects what the sales price ultimately is. And we have to take into account things like shipping and freight and labor involved, all those related costs, and margin can vary by category when we're talking about cheese or meat or groceries. So these are really important concepts, and many of you who are in Murray shops around the country, these may be things that you encounter during your day-to-day or things that you will encounter. So they really are important concepts. And I know that math can seem intimidating, but I think once you understand the principles and you do these practice questions and you do the practice exams, it'll hopefully make sense to you. And it really is like basically solving for X. And the exam questions will lay out most of the elements, and then you're just using the formulas. You're figuring out what the missing piece is. So if we jump on to the first or the second slide. Let's cover some of the main concepts and the main definitions that we're talking about when we think about these questions on the exam. Price refers to the money that you receive when you sell an item to someone else. So on the exam too, you may see them use the term sales price, selling price, retail price. All of that refers to price. And then on the flip side, the cost is what you pay to purchase an item or good. Again, on the exam, you may see it referred to as cost of goods sold, or even abbreviated in caps as COGS. So those are some other ways that they may refer to these terms. And then if we flip to the next slide, some other terms that we're talking about is markup. So markup is the amount over the cost that you're charging for an item. This is also referred to as gross profit or sometimes just profit. So the formula for a markup is price minus cost. That equals your markup or your gross profit. So if we dive into our first example, we are given the information that sausage costs $6. So if I think about I'm buying a retail pack of sausage from a producer, it's going to cost me as a buyer $6 to buy that piece of product. And then I want to sell it in my store for $10. So if I use the formula to solve for a markup or gross profit, it's simply the price that I'm selling it at, so $10, minus the price that it cost me to buy it, which is $6. So we're left with $4. So my markup on this item is $4, and that's expressed as a dollar amount. And then if we jump to the next slide, we can also express markup as a percentage. And this was something that when I was studying for the CCP last year, the presenter, this was just, it's very simple, but like both these words have a K sound, markup and cost. So it was just something easy to remember, and it stuck with me in my head. So hopefully this is helpful for you guys. And I would say for this section and anything on the exam, if you have, mnemonics or anything that triggers you to remember a formula or a bit of information, those are always really helpful. So for markup, when we're talking about a markup percentage, that formula is the price minus the cost divided by the cost. So the K, the C, the K sound. So going back to our example, we were given the cost is $6, the GP is $4, and we're solving for the percentage. So markup percentage equals our price of 10 minus our cost of 6 divided by our cost of 6. That equals 4 divided by 6. If you do the math, if you write it out, and that comes to 0.6666 infinity. And then to turn that into a percentage, you just multiply by 100, so you get 67%. So again, you can express markup as a dollar value, and then you can also show it as a percentage. So a lot of the questions on the test may be about, they're either asking it for it in the dollar value or in the percentage. So you just, you see what they're looking for. And then if we jump to the next slide, the other piece of this, you have markup, and then you also have margin. So margin is about the amount of your profit. So the formula for margin, slightly different. Your margin is equal to your price minus your cost divided by your price. So if you go by using the K sound, there's no cost that you're dividing by here. So going back to our original example, we solved for our gross profit, and we figured out that was our price of 10 minus our cost of 6. So our gross profit was $4. We know that our original sales price for sausage is $10. So using this formula, price minus cost divided by price, we're looking at 0.4. And then to turn that into a percentage, that's 40%. So as I mentioned in the beginning, like a target margin of 40%, that's something that as a buyer, we think about what do we set the sales price as so that we hit a target margin of 40%. If it's an item for our website, margins tend to be higher to cover shipping and labor and freight and all that. So we might be looking at a 60% margin, so we would have to adjust the sales price for that. So that's just a little bit of context about how you would use these formulas in everyday life. So now we're going to walk through an example of what you may see on the exam. So on the test, they're going to give you a question, a scenario, and they're going to provide you some of the numbers, some of the information, and you basically have to solve for X. You have to solve for whatever the missing piece is. So in this example, they're telling us we have a 40% margin on an item that is priced at $10, and we're looking for the markup. So something that I definitely recommend especially for this piece of the exam is to write down these formulas. When you get to the exam, you'll be given, I believe it's a whiteboard and a marker, and at a certain point you'll be allowed to start the exam. So I found it really helpful to like jot down these formulas and any other things that as you're going through your prep, things that you want to remember, to do that at the start of the exam so you have it readily available. So for this question, I want to jot down that formula. So my markup percentage is equal to my price minus my cost divided by my cost, and that's the K sound, the K and the C. The information that we're given in the example, we know that the price is $10, they're telling us that, and we know that the margin is 40%. So basically what we're missing is the cost. So we need to figure out what the cost is. So if we jump to the next slide, we're using our formulas to solve for cost. So our margin formula is price minus cost divided by price. We plug in what we know. So we know our margin is 40%. We know our price is $10. We're solving for that C, for that cost. So doing the math, we're multiplying our price by the 40% margin, and we're solving for cost. We get down to the end there, and your cost is $6. So it's really just writing it out. You are going to have a calculator in the exam too, so whatever you're more comfortable with in terms of and doing the math itself. So using the formula, we solve for cost. We know our cost is $6. And if we jump to the next slide, we're gonna do the next question, which is, you have a 40% margin on an item priced $10. What is the markup? So sorry, continuation of the same question, but now we have the missing element of cost, and now we want to find markup. So going back to our formula, markup is our price minus our cost divided by our cost. We plug in the information that we now have. We solve for our cost, so we know that information. Doing the math, you get down to a 0.666 markup as a dollar value, and then you multiply that by 100 to get your percentage. You have a 67% markup. The more you do these type of questions, the easier it'll be. Understanding the principle is really important, and then the more you practice, it just becomes kind of like second nature. And they're like little puzzles on the exam. And now we're going to do one example of, I would say, the other type of math question on the exam. There definitely are going to be a handful on the margin and markup concepts. So I would say to just understand, review those concepts, write down those formulas, practice those questions, because there definitely will be a few. And if you know how to do it, those are guaranteed questions that you will get right. And then fat and dry matter is the other sort of math-related question on the exam. So the example we're working with is, how many ounces of fat are in a 10-ounce cheese with 60% water and 75% fat and dry matter? So a couple more formulas for you guys to remember when we're talking about these kind of questions. So you're thinking about your total cheese weight. Your cheese is made up of, we know there's dry matter and there's wet matter, there's moisture in your cheese. So your total cheese weight is the wet percentage plus the dry percentage. So continuing the example, we're looking to solve for the fat and dry matter as an amount. So our total weight is 10 ounces. They're telling us that. We know that information. Our wet percentage is 60%. They're also giving us that. So we need to figure out what that dry percentage is. So 10 ounces times 60% equals 6 ounces as an amount. So our total weight of the cheese is 10 ounces. If we subtract what we know is the wet percentage, so 6 ounces, we're left with 4 ounces of dry weight. And then if we want to solve for that as a percentage, we use the second formula, which is your total dry weight is going to be composed of your fat percentage and then your protein and other. So when you think back to your early sessions of actual the cheese making kind of 101, we know that cheese has a certain components of fat, and then there's also protein and other components in the cheese. So our total dry weight in this example, we just solved for that. That's 4 ounces. That's made up of our fat percentage plus proteins and others. So if we say 4 ounces, and we were told at the beginning of this question that 75% is our fat to dry matter ratio. So 4 ounces times 75% equals 3 ounces. So that's your 3 ounces of fat and dry matter. On the exam, they could also ask you what the protein or other percentage is in this example. So to solve for that, you know that you have 4 ounces of dry weight. You just solved for 3 ounces of fat. So therefore, that other ounce making up the 4 ounce total is going to be your protein and other. So you may see this question on the test in a couple of different ways. But if you know these two formulas, if you write them down and you practice them, I'm confident that you guys will do really well. So I think, practice, write down your formulas, stay calm, you're going to do great. And good luck to all of you. Enjoy the experience and enjoy the conference.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lauren, for walking us through that. Guys, I just want to echo what Lauren said, that you can expect to see a handful of these questions appear on the test, but don't freak out if this is not your subject and this is not where you're going to get those points. It's not the whole test. It literally is just a handful of questions. So don't panic. I'll tell you, I'm terrible at math. I was very worried about this section, but really knowing those formulas and remembering those little tricks, like the markup and cost trick, that will really help you. And I also recommend that you just really drill through that worksheet that we gave you, and that'll be really helpful for you. There was something else that I wanted to tell you, and I can't remember what it is right now. So I'll follow up in email form if I remember. But just as I said, just drill through those questions, and please reach out to us if you have any questions or concerns, or if you need some extra help. We are here for you, and good luck continuing to study this stuff, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much.